Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leon Vainstein speaking from Los Angeles, California. Did you know that the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, dropped 26,000 air bombs on peaceful cities? And by the way, he received the Nobel Prize. I've always been amazed by the stupidity of numerous so-called deep experts, from music to politics and economics. Let's take, for example, the question, were the Iranians working on a nuclear program, not peaceful nuclear energy, but a nuclear program, or was it all just a completely unnecessary but still peaceful nuclear project for them? They don't need that much hydrocarbons and all that stuff. Just because you don't see the far side of the moon doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There are other ways to detect objects and activity, for example, by using your head for more than just eating. You could start by asking yourself why the Iranians spent billions of dollars to dig several huge pits under the rocks, space under the rocks. So if everything is so peaceful, why go hundreds of meters underground, under the rocks? Next, if this is a peaceful atom and the International Atomic Energy Agency can help, then why not, as they say, help a brother developing a peaceful atom? Why not let scientists from all over the world into these centers? I think they would gladly share their knowledge. Here is A. Why risk sanctions, an economic blockade, and direct confrontation with the West when you can just show everything and calm the world down, say, guys, what's the matter with you? What's wrong with you, right? And finally, why sell oil at 15 to 20% cheaper and lose billions of dollars just because only China is willing to risk bypassing sanctions and buying everything that Iran produces? Why lose money, lose connections, endure hardships? Yes, it would be so easy to figure out that it's all easy to do. Just say yes, come in, take a look, that's all. There's another interesting legend that says the Americans didn't just destroy Iran's nuclear program, and now it will take years to restore it, but they destroyed it in such a way that it will only take months to restore. This is a completely incorrect logical interpretation of the events. Do you remember the joke about the horse? About whether it could eat a bucket of grain, they argued and argued. The peasant listened to this and said, sure, it could eat it, but who would give it to her? Isn't that right? I think that those who start fussing, do they even understand that whether it's years or months, it doesn't matter? What's important is something completely different. Iran now knows that as soon as they build something that resembles a nuclear program, bunker-busting bombs will come and blow it up. So, for example, what is important to you? We will blow up their nuclear facilities every year if it takes months, or every 2 or 3 years if it takes years. This is now just a theoretical discussion. Iran has already figured out the point. These will be blown up. So these are not just empty words. We will not allow these lunatics who shout, wave their arms, and say they'll kill everyone to have nuclear weapons. And we're not just saying it, we're doing it. Moreover, if they bring it from North Korea, Pakistan, or Russia, Mossad will know about it. It's already clear to everyone that Mossad knows better than they do. Where is the left hand? Where is the right hand? And they'll bomb this one right away. In a second, in a month, it doesn't matter. They'll bomb it, and at the same time, they'll take out everyone who's organizing it. Do you think there will be a huge number of people willing to do it right away, right? That's why, gentlemen, the most important question for any bombastic statements: can we hear the details? Because it's in the details that the essence lies. You see, the essence is in the details, not in the statement. Now, I want to remind you that those who subscribe to our free video project called Roadmap, which is a series of 10-minute engaging videos, should check their spam folder. because at least a third of those who subscribed haven't opened it, and it looks like it ended up in spam. Spam is the junk folder of your email. If you haven't received it, that's where it might be. Well, let's put it this way. If both the book and then the next 2 or 3 days of the video project ended up in the junk folder, then you just need to show that it's not junk. Your computer will know that it shouldn't send it there anymore. Tell your computer, this is not spam. And we also added several formats for the book. And hopefully now you'll be able to choose the one that works for your phone or your computer or whatever device you're using to view this. And by the way, going back to what we were talking about, here is Trump himself speaking to the Iranians.
Well, the program was clearly set back, but the program was clearly set back. And the question is, by how much? Months, years, or forever? This, of course, is of some interest, but there is a bigger picture here, and I don't think we should pay much attention to people like Chris Murphy. He's a fierce opponent of Trump who says all sorts of exotic things, and well, you know, I wouldn't really pay much attention to him. I think we need to look at the situation in the Middle East and far beyond it more broadly with a wider perspective. For example, a year ago at this time, Iran was on its way to developing nuclear weapons. No one knows exactly how close they were. He had powerful armed forces deployed. He had THEA, his fearsome Revolutionary Guard command structure. He had proxies all over the Middle East. Both Hamas and Hezbollah are the most prominent examples of this. And today, he doesn't have any of that. Besides that, he had allies in the world. Russia is the most, obvious example. And look at Russia if you want. After everything that happened in the Middle East, after the fall of Assad's regime, who was an ally in Syria, an ally of Russia, in the country that Putin and his regimes had already come to help before. But this time they're too busy with the situation in Ukraine to do anything. Similarly, Iran has also suffered. Obviously, wouldn't the Iranian regime want to get help from its ally Russia, to whom, as you know, it supplies drones and other military equipment? Russia hasn't lifted a finger. The same goes for its friend China, which, as is well known, gets oil from Iran. They haven't done anything either. And one of the important things that I think I see is that regardless of what the final assessment of the damage from this bombing turns out to be, the very fact that the United States was able to pull this off, able to get there, remain unnoticed, not be detected, and not come under fire from the Iranian regime, and do what they did, in addition to what Israel has already done, it's remarkable.
If intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country?
Of course. Well, there's the confirmation for those who doubted. No questions, absolutely 100%, let them have no doubts. And no one, neither Russia nor Korea nor Pakistan nor China, just as they haven't helped now, they won't help in the future either. Moreover, it turned out that not a single Russian air defense system can see, detect, or therefore stop either the B-2A or other flying assets of Israel and the United States. By the way, this is a huge letdown for the Russian defense industry, and its consequences will continue to affect Russian arms sales and the willingness of countries to cooperate with the Kremlin for a long time. As I've said many times, Trump's entire program, which he presented for these elections, 47, yes, is compiled into a 1,900-page bill. It was passed by Congress. A small margin, just one word, one person, one vote. And now it's being discussed in the Senate, where Trump is pressuring senators to have it passed by the 4th of July. The procedure is as follows. Senators make their amendments and additions. If it's approved, then both chambers sit down to reconcile the two versions of the bill. Then there's another vote, this time on the reconciled text. If everything goes through, the bill is placed on the president's desk, he signs it, and it becomes law. That includes the budget and a lot of other things. If the bill doesn't pass, then much of what Trump promised to do won't get funding, which means it won't be done. Plus, there's another small detail. The bill includes an extension of tax breaks. More precisely, what Trump proposed during his first term, he could do temporarily because it was done without Congress, the Senate, approval, and so on. And now the time has come, and either they will jump back to what it was before Trump, a disaster even before Trump's first term, or they will sign them, and all of them will become, so to speak, the law of the land, as they say. If this law is not passed, Congress will not approve the permanent extension of the tax cuts, which means taxes will increase significantly. Gentlemen, by a lot.
President Trump is looking ahead to his speech. President Trump is looking forward to the spending bill as the Senate is set to meet in a rare Saturday session to discuss how to move the bill forward. The Treasury Secretary met with Senate Republicans on Friday to address concerns that Trump's bill would increase the deficit too much. The president still insists on passing the bill. By Independence Day, he posted on social media about ending trade talks with Canada because of that country's plans to introduce a new digital services tax. Lawmakers say they are still concerned. The bill could increase the national deficit.
This bill provides for about $400 to $500 billion in new spending. And why are you proposing a bill with $500 billion in new spending if your goal is to fix the deficit?
Right now, the Senate is short by 2 or 3 votes to pass this bill. Trump says that he is optimistic that he will be able to convince enough Republicans, and the budget that gives him the freedom to act on the promises he made during his campaign will be approved. We all know that the Democrats have always sued Trump in several very specific districts. We have a lot of them there. There are less than 100 of those districts, yes, but about 90. Damn, I just can't remember. 90 to 100. That's why they only filed in these 5 or 6 districts. The thing is, in these districts, they found 100% of the judges. Notorious, desperate leftists who long ago sold out, let's put it this way, swore an oath to honesty or do their job just for a bowl of soup. So, by filing in these districts, no matter which judge gets the case, and there, it's like the next judge comes in and gets the case. It doesn't matter if it's you or me. It's like a roulette, always unpredictable. Or maybe they knew that anyone in this roulette would play along with them, or rather, not just play along, but actually rule in their favor. This was especially true for a district in the state of Maryland. By law, you can't force a case to be moved from one district to another. But someone from Trump's team, one of Trump's guys, came up with a brilliant idea. Listen up, everyone. If the judge is a party in the case, then he cannot judge impartially. And since he cannot judge impartially, he is required by law to hand the case over to another judge in his district. And if all the judges in that district are parties in the proceedings, then they are required to transfer the case to another district. Here, listen. Good-looking guy, commentator Robert Gouveia. Trump delivers.
A counter-strike files a lawsuit against the entire district court. This includes a whole group of other judges, not just one judge, and that's unusual. We don't often see this either on this channel or in this country in general. We have a situation where the United States Department of Homeland Security is the plaintiff and is suing all the judges. Chief Judge George Russell. And there's something else interesting here from a procedural and tactical point of view. Now that they've been sued, Trump has also filed this. Guess what? Now you're defendants in a lawsuit, and since we've sued you, you can no longer handle our cases. So you're required to recuse yourself by the rules. That's it. You must immediately step away from our cases. It also says that we'll return to the original lawsuit, but this is a motion to recuse the judges. They say, since we're suing you, now recuse yourself from the case and transfer it to another district. The plaintiffs, the United States of America and the Department of Homeland Security, respectfully request that the judge of this court recuse himself from this matter. Xenos does not specify whether he is male or female. The plaintiff also requests that this case be transferred to the clerk's office of the Fourth Circuit for the appointment of a randomly selected federal judge from another district, or that all cases be moved to another district.
In other words, there's no way to beat Loom unless you have another Loom.
We are interested to see what will happen in response to this, and we expect to see other motions to recuse judges in other cases as well, possibly in the Kilmar case, before Judge Zenos and others. But Tom Homan said, listen, we're going to keep deporting these people. These judges are trying to overwhelm us with court injunctions. But as soon as we pass this big, beautiful bill, we'll get rid of these national security threats. We'll do this together with Hayes. Tom Homan on what's next. Well, listen, we have a lot ahead of us.
Work to do. You're absolutely right, and I want you to join in again. The bill. We need funding for more agents, more detention transport spaces, and a more targeted approach. That's why it's extremely important, especially right now. For those on Capitol Hill, I don't care. Eliminating threats to national and public security should be above politics. So do it. We need the resources to make it happen. But the good news is we have President Trump. We have President Trump in the Oval Office. So I can tell you, right after the election, we didn't wait for January. We didn't wait for the inauguration. Right after the election, I got together with a lot of smart people and said, okay, we have a big problem that we need to deal with right after the inauguration. That's more than 2 million people who have evaded the authorities, and all these persons of special interest who were released into the territory of the United States. So we started preparing for this a few months ago. So on the very first day of the administration, we'll get right to work. That's why President Trump said we will focus on national security threats and public safety threats after the events with Iran. This weekend, we picked up the pace, added more resources, and started working on it. We will do everything possible as quickly as we can.
You see, the head of the organization, which is called, this is the organization responsible for catching and deporting illegal immigrants from the country. He is waiting for the adoption of the bill we talked about to get the necessary funding and the legal basis he needs.
A new bombshell report confirmed. A new bombshell report confirms what many believed and talked about regarding the lockdowns. Big Pharma and Dr. Fauci. President Trump just finished the best week of his presidency, and even cable news network can't stop praising him.
Well, I can't help but say that. In New York City, the Democratic candidate for mayor said that white people should pay more than black, brown, olive, and yellow-brown people.
Plus the mayoral candidate of New York. In addition, the candidate for mayor of New York insists that white Americans will be singled out and taxed at a higher rate to pay for his socialist agenda. We have a new candidate for mayor of New York, Zaran Mamdani, a man who has lived here for less than 10 years. He is doubling down on his efforts to make New York great again by taxing white people at a higher rate to pay for foreigners and people of color living in New York. Right now, 30% of New York's residents are foreigners. So making impossible promises of free benefits at America's expense, forcing white Americans to pay higher taxes. That's what he's hoping for, that his message will resonate and help him take office by pushing out Eric Adams.
So, as usual, the Democrats are promising someone that they'll steal money from another group and give it to them, thinking those votes will be enough to win the election. There was a time when racism was banned in the United States. Well, at the very least, it was something to be ashamed of. You couldn't, and it was shameful to say it out loud.
Scott Jennings of Cable News Network got a chance to honestly speak out about President Trump and all his
successes.
Was an excellent
Video, so
let me put it on the screen and then we'll listen together.
Donald Trump is just going crazy with executive orders. He might issue an executive order today. Most likely he will. He said it himself today, and he knows that lower courts can't just stop him, which significantly increases the power of the executive branch.
Yeah, look, this is a great week for him. And not just because of this decision, but also because at the beginning of the week, the Supreme Court issued a ruling allowing him to deport illegal immigrants to third countries, basically. So right now, he's on a bit of a winning streak in the courts. And, as many Republicans say, no, we're not tired of winning yet. This happened with the stock market at record highs. He brokered a ceasefire in the 12-day war between Rwanda and Congo. Peace was achieved. I mean, gas prices this summer are at their lowest level in 4 years. That is victory after victory, and this victory is the most important one. Because individual judges, it seems to me, unfairly interfered with the president's ability to govern the country. He won the election, and they did not. We don't have 600 presidents, we have one president, and now he will really be able to govern the country. So you could say that this week or the last 2 weeks have been the best of his entire presidency.
I agree with him. Scott, who was invited to participate in the Daily Leftist show, turned out to be 10, 12, 34 times smarter than everyone else in that television studio. He gradually started to become, I would say, almost a cult figure in America. His short speeches, answers, explanations, they get forwarded, clipped, made into shorts, discussed, and predicted. He has a great future in media, and possibly, by the way, in politics as well.
What a joy and privilege it is to cover this compared to all the terrible, nightmarish, crappy background I had to cover for 4 years under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They didn't list everything that worked in Trump's favor, and not everything will always go his way, but I'll just list these points. A ceasefire between Iran and Israel after the bombing of nuclear facilities. Not a single person was killed. The Supreme Court put an end to the judicial coup by limiting the use of nationwide injunctions. Trump achieved that every NATO country spends 5% of its gross domestic product on defense, which amounts to billions and billions of dollars. Rwanda and Congo signed a historic peace agreement, putting an end to another war. President Trump received permission from the Supreme Court to send illegal immigrants to third countries.
Indexes.
Sampersant, P500, and NASDAQ have reached an all-time high. President Trump scored a victory after the Senate tried to limit his actions in Iran with a war powers resolution. The deal with China has been signed. Several major food companies have joined the growing list of those who have pledged to remove toxic artificial dyes from American foods. Economic experts say that Trump has completely won on the issue of tariffs. And according to government data, more than $30 billion a month is coming in now. And President Trump says we're just getting started, period. Social Security payments showed the largest monthly decline in history. That's good because it means they've eliminated waste, fraud, and abuse. And as I told you last night, big eggs from the Doga. He was specifically hired as a special government employee to identify remaining fraud in the welfare system and strengthen it. For American retirees,
that's huge.
General Electric announced that it is moving its production from China back to Kentucky, United States of America. The Pentagon has started reinstating service members who were unfairly dismissed for refusing to take the experimental vaccine. The president of the University of Virginia resigned after President Trump put pressure on him. It has been an incredible week for Make America Great Again and President Trump. Let me know in the comments if you're tired of winning. I'm not, gentlemen.
We will cut out this piece of Trump's achievement and put it separately so you can share it with your friends. Am I personally tired of winning? No, I'm not. What about you? It's nice that even they can't say anything against it and are forced to admit what can't be denied.
They additionally confirmed the details of the framework agreement. Of course, Trump's initial introduction of tariffs in the spring hurt American markets, but now the markets have recovered and grown. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ indexes just reached record highs yesterday, and it's not just about the stock market. Inflation, the main economic fear of recent years, seems to be under control. Right now, the inflation rate is 2.4%, while 4 years ago it reached 7%. Meanwhile, blue-collar workers saw real wage growth of 1.7% during the first 5 months of President Trump's term. This is the most significant increase in almost 3 generations.
Keep in mind, 3 generations is about 60 to 75 years. And the increase in wages, really, taking inflation into account, has indeed happened all these years.
Despite the impact on our national debt, some hope that Trump's big, beautiful bill will bring additional financial relief to blue-collar workers as well as create incentives to build more factories in the United States. Some are already seeing this happen. For example, just announced that it will invest nearly $500 million to move washing machine production from China to Kentucky. And then there's the border issue. According to the May report, border crossings have dropped to a minimum. On the southwest border, there are now 282 cases per day, which is 93% less than last year. And that's the lowest since the early 1960s. Perhaps the loudest applause about these borders is coming from the Latino community in America. On Thursday, Purasek published an analysis of the surprises of the 2024 election. Among them is the fact that President Trump received a higher percentage of Latino votes than previously thought. Hillary Clinton had a 38% advantage over Trump among Hispanic voters. In 2016, Joe Biden outperformed Trump in this demographic group by 25 percentage points. And what was Kamala Harris's lead among these same voters compared to Trump? Only 3 percentage points. And perhaps surprisingly, Pew Research concluded that if everyone voted in 2024, contrary to the belief that high turnout helps Democrats,
Trump would still win. With all the successes of Trump's policies and the split in the Democratic Party, the split into soft socialists, that is, to milk those who are richer to live at their expense, and the hardline communo-Trotskyists, like, so to speak, beat him, cut him, the capitalist. Take everything from him, put it all in the common fund, and gorge yourself from there with 3 mouths. The party is falling apart. And, by the way, that wall of prosecutors and judges who were appointed by Obama and funded by Soros, and with their help they tried to remove, or incoherently, we know them, so MAGA and Trump specifically, it's also falling apart at the seams.
After many years of using the judicial system against President Trump, their entire strategy has completely failed. Letitia James, the woman who promised to get Trump, is now herself under criminal investigation.
Let me remind you. The dark-skinned girl from New York who, to be continued in Trump's brochure, because Trump's promotional brochure said that his Mar-a-Lago home was worth more than what that girl Letitia thought. She demanded and got from a corrupt judge in New York a fine. Trump has to pay over $500. No, not dollars, millions of dollars. Of course, there's already an appeal and so on, but that's not the point. The main thing is that she demanded it and got what she wanted.
All this time, she's been desperately digging her own grave, openly ignoring the Supreme Court's decision. The irony is just amazing. You couldn't come up with a more self-destructive opponent than this. Let's start with the latest sensational news. Just 36 hours ago, as you know, the Supreme Court delivered a crushing blow to supporters of judicial prosecutions, ruling that federal judges can no longer issue nationwide injunctions against presidential orders. Specifically, this means that Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship can now take effect in all 50 states. And the Democrats are literally going crazy over this, especially New York State Attorney General Letitia James. If you didn't know, James is currently under federal investigation for the same kind of fraud she accused Trump of.
The funny thing is, after accusing Trump of trying to defraud a bank, she was actually forging her own documents at the same time to deceive a bank.
We're talking about real estate fraud. Again, you can't make this stuff up. And right now, there are reports coming in that she's openly ignoring the Supreme Court's decision. Essentially, James is saying that she will refuse to comply with the order allowing President Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship to take effect until the court makes a final decision on the matter. So James is openly stating that she will fight this and that she will organize legal resistance against the Supreme Court's decision allowing the birthright citizenship order to take effect. Thus, she is openly challenging this court ruling. And that's why it's so funny. After all, she is the one currently under investigation. The Federal Housing Finance Agency referred the case to Letitia James for criminal prosecution, claiming that she forged mortgage documents to get a better loan. Now, the FBI has launched an official investigation and a federal grand jury has issued subpoenas. The woman who built her entire career on prosecuting Trump for allegedly inflating property values is now being accused of the same thing herself. There is even a claim that she and her father in 1983 signed mortgage documents pretending to be husband and wife. Again, you can't make this stuff up, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because if you look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that the entire strategy of the Democrats' legal war against Trump has collapsed like a house of cards. Jack Smith's federal case has fallen apart. He's gone. His entire team of prosecutors has been fired. The case in Georgia is basically dead, and the Manhattan District Attorney's case, in which Trump was found guilty, will be overturned on appeal or dismissed. Republicans in the House of Representatives have released a report showing how Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and Judge Merchan violated Trump's constitutional rights. The report describes how Bragg used an unconstitutional Russian nesting doll theory, in which the jurors were not required to reach a unanimous decision on the factual elements of the crime. This was a mockery of justice. And now, of course, the Democrats' practice of judge shopping to find left-wing judges across the country to issue nationwide judicial injunctions has been completely destroyed since yesterday. So now we're seeing pure panic from the Democratic establishment. They threw everything they had at Trump: 4 criminal cases, civil lawsuits, attempts to remove him
from the elections.
And not only did it not work, it turned into a massive failure for them. As reported, Trump's ratings increased during the trials. Americans saw their desperate attempts to interfere in the elections. And now Letitia James is frantically trying to use taxpayers' money to pay for her legal defense. Just think about that. The woman who spent years going after Trump is now asking New York taxpayers to pay for her own criminal defense. And I mean, the hypocrisy is just astounding. So the consequences of Friday's Supreme Court decision are still enormous. And that makes Democrats like Letitia James persist even more in their foolishness. What's the first rule when you find yourself in a hole? What's the first rule, right? Stop digging.
Stop cutting the branch. Not the kind of branch that's a jerk, but the branch you're sitting on. Stop digging deeper and deeper if you're already in a hole. But it seems that Democrats, being emotional people rather than rational ones, I'm trying to say this without offending anyone, fit the image of pseudo-intellectuals or so-called partial intellectuals. Let me explain. Take Albert Einstein, for example. In the exact sciences, he checks everything, verifies everything, justifies everything, and doesn't take anything on faith. In other words, a true intellectual in his profession. But if you're Einstein, do you want Joseph Stalin to have an atomic bomb too, as he wanted and did everything for before? Because capitalists are immoral and they want everything for themselves, while Stalin and the communists do everything for the people. In science, he checks everything, doesn't trust, studies facts and logic, But in other areas, he just blindly believes because propaganda and his emotions whispered to him. That's what a partial intellectual is. By the way, this story about Einstein, it actually happened in real life. Not only did he sleep with a Soviet spy knowing she was a Soviet spy, but he also passed copies of research and blueprints through her. Today's Democrats might be what we call not stupid, meaning they can speak eloquently about psychology, art, and their professional activities. But as soon as it comes to something related to their emotions, and everything public is connected to emotions, they become dumb and underdeveloped, and very, well, I don't even know, so to speak, pompadour-like. There's probably no such word. Pompous, yes, pompous, that's the word. Conversationalists. The question is, how can such a smart person be such an idiot? This question is completely legitimate. It's about today's so-called democratic intellectuals. That is, the Democratic Party is based on people who have spent many years in universities, in all their colleges, and so on. And the longer they were there, the more they were indoctrinated. So you can't ask questions, you have to take their word for it. If you even thought for a second that something might be wrong there, that maybe the capitalists were right about something, God forbid, then you were an enemy, you had to be eradicated, and so on. So these are people who have been completely indoctrinated, so to speak, with the very same juice that, unfortunately, our children are being steeped in at universities and now even in schools, and they've already started in kindergartens. So, in fact, our so-called Western culture, even though it's based on the principles of capitalism, it shapes people. Not by itself. That's just how it turned out, so to speak. There are roots to this. Yes, this needs to be addressed. It raises young people to be partial intellectuals, meaning, for example, in physics or geometry or something like that. Like, there's this guy, a heavyset guy, Dmitri, what's his name? Yeah. Bykov, yes, that's it, Bykov. So, Bykov, well, I don't know, he's a good poet, they say he's very good. Literature expert. But he's an absolute idiot in everything he tries to do. The main thing is he just wants to talk about it. That's another interesting trait. For example, if it's a musician, there's harmony and so on, composition. And then a physicist comes in and starts tearing something apart. It's easier with notes. The musician starts getting upset, getting excited, and in the end tells him, "You're stupid," or the other way around, so to speak. A musician came to the physicist and started telling him that matter is made up of something completely different from what the physicist thinks, and it's made up of some idiotic theory, something invented by some witch doctor, to which the physicist finally says, "Get out of here, go to Letty." But both of them, if they've studied at Western universities, they're either both just plain dumb, just wave a red flag at them on some television show and say something twice. They also have these enormous ears that their heads hang on or maybe don't hang on at all. Well, all right, that's not important anymore. What's important is that you understand what I'm trying to say. The longer people study at universities in America, Europe, and so on, the more, unfortunately, they become foolish in everything except their own profession. That's where we finish. Goodbye. Subtitles created by